Questions. Hello and welcome to our lesson on succession. There are two types of succession that we're going to discuss, and the first one is primary succession. Primary succession is when a community is formed where nothing lived before. So we're talking about bare rock, like whenever lava flow creates bare rock, or in the city, whenever we pour concrete. As time passes, you start to get primary succession. So what we're going to see is the passage of time here down at the bottom, okay? So we're starting with bare rocks. There's nothing but rock, okay? There's no soil. There's nothing. Nothing has been established here. So you have bare rock. The first thing that's going to move in are lichens and mosses. And these can live on bare rock without attaching to soil or having anything like that. And this is lichen is actually two organisms living together in a symbiotic relationship. And they're going to survive on the rocks first. And this picture kind of looks like there's grass and stuff. There really shouldn't be. There's just rocks, okay? And this is going to happen, and as time goes, the rock starts to break down, and then you have things decomposing, and so soil starts to form. And when soil forms, this lichen and mosses, these pioneer species that existed, those are going to start to be replaced because now we have soil. And as soil is formed, we start to get new species, and we're going to get grasses and flowers first and see how time is moving forward. We get grasses, flowers, any kind of small plant likes a lot of sun, that's going to grow. Herbs, perennial plants, those will start to grow, but they're small, and you notice we still have a lot of rocks too. As time continues, those are going to be outcompeted by the next stage of plants, and these are going to be small shrubs, small trees, anything that's shade tolerant too will continue to grow near the ground, but that's going to start to outcompete the grasses. So there's going to be a lot of competition, and because they're taking up the sunlight, the grasses that aren't shade tolerant can't continue to grow underneath there. And time continues to move forward, and this can take, hundreds of years for this to happen. And we eventually get to a climax community or a mature community. We have very large trees, shade-tolerant plants growing near the ground, and this is called a climax community. And this can take quite a long period of time to get there. At the same time, succession doesn't always have to go all the way through, and we see all of these stages, and we absolutely reach this climax community. This process can be interrupted by other disturbances. But what I want you to understand is primary succession is when we're starting on bare rock. Okay, there's nothing there. There's no kind of established community, okay? Now, our second type of succession is secondary succession. And secondary succession is when we have an established community. It could be a climax community, or it could be something in between. But our foldable says climax community. So this is where we have an established community. Something is going to happen. There's going to be a disturbance, okay? And disturbance can be man-made or it can be a natural disaster. So floods, forest fires, earthquakes, anything that's going to wipe out or take away a lot of the vegetation. And so that's going to leave us with exposed ground. That is a disturbance. We have changed the climax community. We've gotten rid of it. This is secondary succession on established soil, okay? Now, again, we're going to have our pioneer species that are going to move in first. They're fast growing, and so they'll show up first. Grasses and herbs, perennial plants, those small plants start to show up first. And as time continues, and this is going to happen much faster because we already had soil, so we don't have to wait as long for the soil to be established. As time continues, we're going to start to see small shrubs and trees again. Blackberry will grow, cactuses like to grow in this kind of area. If you live in an area where you have lots of cactus. And this will continue. Eventually, again, we're going to come to our climax forest. Now, something to be clear is not every ecosystem is going to go all the way to a climax forest because sometimes natural disasters continue to occur. For example, in the grasslands that were, the Midwest of the United States, when people first showed up, they saw grass forever, nothing but grass. Well, what was occurring all the time? One, there was a lot of wildlife moving through, so bison herds and stuff, and that's a huge disturbance. And we had fires, a lot of fires. Wildfires were really common when you have this dry prairie grass And so a fire would break out, and that would prevent this from continuing towards a climax community. So succession was continuing, or the disturbances were continuing to happen, so succession wasn't really moving forward every year. And so not everything is going to move to this climax forest. And not every climax forest is going to look exactly the same. A climax forest, like a tropical rainforest, looks significantly different from a climax community in, say, a marine environment. The marine ecosystem is still going to have a climax community with coral and fish and all of those things there that should be there, but it's not going to look exactly like a tropical rainforest. At the same time, a tundra climax community is not going to look exactly like what you'd see in the tropical rainforest either. So that depends on the plants that live there, but in general, this is what a climax forest would, or climax community would look like. Very large trees with just shade-tolerant plants on the ground. Okay. Now, secondary succession. There's a difference. This is when we have established soil and some sort of disturbance occurs to cause that community to be disrupted or changed. And not every fire is going to destroy a climax community. If you have really, really, really big, well-established trees, those may not really be harmed by a small fire. So it's not exactly clear-cut where everything starts and where it goes, so that doesn't always have to go all the way back to the beginning. A climax forest might, experience a small disturbance that just takes it back a little bit and disturbs part of it. Okay, so we're looking for established communities. These can occur at any stage, and it can cause succession to start over. It doesn't have to be only the established community. So that's kind of what we're looking for, is when a disturbance kind of sets everything back and resets resets the area back to a previous stage, like deforestation. If you go and cut all the trees down, well, we're going to have to reestablish those trees, and these are what move in first. Okay? And you should have also watched the video on Edpuzzle over succession. So this was just kind of the foldable we did in class to go over that. So hopefully you find that helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.